Deep, resonant music fades in. Thunder rumbles in the distance. Low, deliberate. In a world where wolves rule and debts are paid in blood, one Omega was traded like currency. But they didn't know what they were selling. They didn't know what slept beneath her skin, waiting to wake, waiting to burn. This is the story of Lyra Ashwood, the girl who was sold to pay her pack's debt, and the monster she became. Music swells darkly, then fades to ambient wolf howls. Pain did not arrive gently that night. Before we begin, if you love dark Lycan Kings, forbidden mates, and stories that make your heart ache, like, comment, and subscribe for epic Lycan King romances, where Omegas rise, kings fall, and love is never gentle. Lyra Ashwood stood in chains at the center of the Stone Hollow auction hall, her wrists raw from silver manacles that burned with every breath. The metal hissed against her skin, leaving angry red welts that never seemed to heal. Around her, wolves of every rank gathered, alphas in fine silks, betas with calculating eyes, merchants who traded in flesh and desperation. She was 19. She was Omega. She was nothing. Or so they thought. Pause for effect. Footsteps echoing on stone. Alpha Alaric Thornwood stood at the edge of the platform, his eyes cold as winter frost. This was the man who had raised her. The man who called himself her Alpha. The man who now sold her to the highest bidder without a flicker of remorse. The debt must be paid, he had said 3 nights ago, his voice flat and emotionless. Your father's mistakes are not mine to bear. Her father. Dead 6 months now, and killed in a border skirmish that should never have happened. And the debt. 20,000 gold marks owed to the Council of Alphas. A sum so vast it could have bought 3 territories. Alaric had chosen the easier path. He sold her instead. Auction bell rings. Auctioneer Ida Sharp, businesslike. Lot 17, Omega female, 19 years untouched from the Thornwood pack. Bloodline, Ashwood. Starting bid, 500 gold. Lyra's stomach turned. 500. That's all she was worth to them. Less than a war horse. Less than a breeding mare. Murmurs of interest from crowd. 600, a voice called from the shadows. 800, another countered. She closed her eyes, willing herself to disappear. But disappearing was a luxury the broken couldn't afford. Pause. That's when he walked in. Heavy footsteps. Fish crowd going silent. Rowan Blackthorn was not a man who entered quietly. He was 6'4" of controlled violence, wrapped in midnight armor that seemed to drink the light. Scars carved paths across his jaw and neck. Stories written in pain. His eyes were storm gray, cold and assessing. The eyes of a predator who had stopped pretending to be anything else. He was the Alpha of Shadow Peak, the place where broken wolves went to die. Or worse, to become something new. The crowd parted like water before a shark. Rowan. Low, dangerous. 10,000 gold. The hall went silent. Alaric's eyes widened. The auctioneer stammered. Auctioneer. To 10,000 for an Omega? Rowan. Do I need to repeat myself? Long pause. No one else bids. Auctioneer. Sold. To Alpha Blackthorn of Shadow Peak. Gavel strikes. On chains rattle as Lyra is pulled forward. Lyra couldn't breathe. 10,000 gold. Why would anyone pay that much for her? She was Omega. She was nothing special. No rare bloodline, no exceptional beauty, no powerful abilities. Just ordinary. Except she wasn't. And somehow he knew. Footsteps approaching. Rowan approached the platform with the confidence of a man who had never feared anything in his life. When he reached her, he didn't smile, didn't sneer. He simply looked at her, really looked, as if he could see straight through skin and bone to whatever lay beneath. Rowan. quietly, just for her. The crescent mark on your shoulder. When did it appear? Lyra froze. How did he know about that? She'd hidden it for months, covering it with cloth and lies. The strange silvery marking that had appeared after her father's death are shaped like a crescent moon with thorns wrapped around it. Lyra whispered, defensive. I don't know what you're talking about. Rowan. Liar. He reached out, and before she could flinch away, he pulled aside the fabric at her shoulder. The mark gleamed in the torchlight, silver and somehow alive, pulsing faintly with her heartbeat. The crowd gasped. Alaric went pale. Alpha from crowd, shouting, That's a silver Luna mark. Those bloodlines were extinct. Rowan, not looking away from Lyra. They were supposed to be extinct. There's a difference. Crowd erupts in confused murmurs. Silver Lunas. The name was legend, whispered in old tales and warning songs. They were Omegas born with the ability to command any wolf, Alpha, Beta, or Omega, with nothing but their will. No bond required, no submission needed. Just pure, terrifying power. The councils had hunted them to extinction 300 years ago. Too dangerous, they said. Too unpredictable. A threat to the natural order. But Lyra's mark said otherwise. The journey to Shadow Peak took 2 days. Rowan didn't chain her. Didn't lock her in a cage like she expected. Instead, he gave her a horse, supplies, and one simple instruction. Rowan, run if you want, but know this. Everywhere you go, someone will try to own you. I'm offering you a choice they won't give. Lyra, bitter. What choice? You bought me. Rowan, I paid your pack's debt. That doesn't make you property. That makes you free of them. Lyra, free? I belong to you now. Rowan, turning to face her fully. No, you belong to yourself, and when you're ready, you'll understand what that means. Horse hooves on dirt road, on wind blowing. She didn't run, not because she believed him, but because she had nowhere to go. Shadow Peak revealed itself on the second evening, a fortress carved into black stone cliffs, surrounded by forests so dense they looked like walls. No banners flew from its towers. No guards stood at attention. Just raw, brutal architecture that promised nothing soft lived here. Wolves gathered at the gates as they approached. But these weren't the polished alphas from the auction. These were scarred, hard-eyed survivors. Omegas with burn marks, betas missing eyes, alphas who looked like they'd been broken and badly reassembled. Lyra, uneasy. What is this place? Rowan, a pack for the rejected, the abandoned, the ones who were told they'd never be enough. Pause. We proved them wrong. Gates creaking open. Inside, the courtyard was alive with controlled chaos. Wolves sparred with real weapons. Omegas threw alphas twice their size. Someone was teaching knife combat in the corner while another group practiced what looked like coordinated assault tactics. This wasn't a pack. This was an army. Senna, female voice, sharp and commanding. Another broken bird, Rowan? A woman approached, tall, muscular, with a scar running from her temple to her jaw. Her eyes were amber fire. Rowan. Senna, meet Lyra. Lyra, this is my second. She'll show you to your quarters. Senna, studying Lyra. Silver Luna? Rowan. Dormant for now. Senna, low whistle. The councils will lose their minds. Rowan. Let them. Footsteps walking away. Lyra followed Senna through corridors lit by torches, her mind spinning. Silver Luna, dormant power. A freedom that felt like another kind of cage. She didn't sleep that night. She couldn't, because somewhere deep in her bones, something was waking up, and it was hungry. Thunder rumbling fade to ominous music. Pain did not arrive gently. It tore through Lyra's skull like claws scraping bone 3 days after her arrival at Shadow Peak. She woke in her small room, gasping, her vision fracturing into impossible colors. Gold, silver, blood-red shadows folding over one another like living things. The crescent mark on her shoulder ignited, not glowing, burning. Lyra screaming, glass shattering in distance. She stumbled into the hallway and her scream ripped through stone itself. Cracks spiderwebbed across the walls, windows shattered in cascading waves, and every wolf within 100 feet dropped to their knees, clawing at their chests as their wolves slammed into forced submission. The mark was not mercy, it was judgment. Heavy footsteps running. Rowan appeared in seconds, his face grim but unsurprised. He didn't try to touch her, didn't try to calm her. He just stood there, solid as stone, and spoke. "Rowan," iron calm. "Easy, let it kill what you were." Lyra, gasping, terrified. "What's happening to me?" Rowan, "You're waking up, and it's gonna hurt like hell." The power surged again, stronger this time. Lyra felt it in her veins, ancient, furious, and utterly unstoppable. It wanted out. It wanted to break things. Rowan, "Don't fight it. You can't win against yourself." Lyra, "I can't control it." Rowan, "Not yet, but you will." Power crackling, wolves groaning in submission. The awakening lasted 4 hours. When it finally subsided, Lyra collapsed in Rowan's arms, her body shaking with exhaustion. The crescent mark still glowed faintly, pulsing with her heartbeat. Around them, wolves slowly got to their feet, eyes wide with fear and awe. Senna, approaching cautiously. "Is she—" Rowan, "She's alive. That's what matters." Senna, "Rowan, if the councils find out she's fully awakened..." Rowan, "Then they'll come, and we'll be ready." Pause. He carried Lyra back to her room, laying her gently on the bed. Her eyes fluttered open, no longer the soft brown they'd been. Now they were molten silver, threaded with black veins that pulsed like lightning. Rowan, quietly, "Rest. Tomorrow we start training." Lyra, weak but defiant. "Training for what?" Rowan, "War." 200 miles away, in the halls of Stone Hollow, Ed Alpha Alaric Thornwood discovered what he had truly sold. The gold he'd taken from Rowan, 10,000 marks in pristine coins, began to scream. Metallic shrieking sound, wolves shouting in panic. Not literally, but every alpha in the pack heard it in their bones. The coins burned cold, frost spreading across them like infection. And then the oath, the ancient oath that bound alpha bloodlines to their word, came roaring back through Alaric's veins. He collapsed in his great hall, gasping as every alpha ancestor howled in his mind. "You sold sacred blood. You sold a silver Luna. You sold a queen." Alaric, choking. I didn't know what she was." But ignorance was not innocence, not in the old laws. Wolves collapsing around him. His beta, Marcus, staggered forward, blood trickling from his nose. Marcus, "Alpha, what's happening?" Alaric, "The oath, the bloodline oath, it's rejecting me." Senna, Alaric's mate, appearing in doorway pale. "We sold a monster." Alaric, "No," coughing blood. "We sold something worse. We sold a queen who doesn't forgive." Thunder crashing outside. The punishment for selling sacred blood was written in bones and ancient law. The pack that sold her would fall, not immediately, not cleanly, but they would fall, piece by piece, as the oath they broke tore them apart from within. Alaric's wolf, the proud alpha who had ruled for 20 years, began to die. Not physically, but spiritually. He could feel it withering inside him, howling in agony as the bonds severed. Alaric, screaming, "No, no!" But the old laws didn't negotiate. Within 3 days, 5 of his strongest warriors would be dead. Within a week, not half his pack would scatter. Within a month, Stone Hollow would be a ghost territory. All because he sold the wrong girl. Ominous music swells. Back at Shadow Peak, Lyra woke to find Rowan sitting in a chair by her window, watching the dawn break over the mountains. Lyra, groggy. How long have you been there? Rowan. Long enough. Lyra. You didn't have to stay. Rowan. Finally looking at her. Yes, I did. Pause, wind blowing outside. He stood and approached the bed, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, his voice was low and careful, as if he were handling something fragile. Rowan. Look at me. She did, and he saw immediately. Her eyes were still silver, still threaded with black. The awakening hadn't faded. It had settled. Rowan. You are not fragile, Lyra. You never were. You are contained. And now the container is breaking. Lyra. Touching her face, feeling the difference. I'm scared. Rowan. Good. Fear means you understand what you're capable of. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could see the scars on his neck, the silver burn marks that never fully healed. Rowan. I won't lie to you. This power will make you a target. The councils will come for you. Other packs will try to control you or kill you. Your life just became infinitely more dangerous. Lyra. Then why did you buy me? Why bring this danger to your pack? Rowan. Meeting her eyes. Because I've spent my entire life protecting wolves the world threw away, and you, Lyra Ashwood, are the most powerful thing they ever discarded. Emotional pause. Her fingers dug into his armor, not in fear, but in something else. Determination. Rage. Airo. Lyra. What happens now? Rowan. Now we make sure everyone who hurt you learns what a mistake that was. Lyra. Will they kneel? Rowan. Dark smile. They'll kneel. Or they'll bleed. Either way, they'll remember your name. She believed him. Music transitions to training montage theme. Shadow Peak was not a sanctuary. It was a forge. And Lyra was about to be thrown into the fire. Sound of combat, wolves sparring, weapons clashing. Training began before dawn the next day. Rowan woke her with a single knock, then led her to the central courtyard, where 30 wolves were already sparring. Omegas fought betas. Betas fought alphas. Everyone fought like their lives depended on winning. Rowan. First lesson: power without control is just destruction. And destruction without purpose is suicide. Lyra. I don't even know how to use this thing inside me. Rowan. Then we start with the basics. Footsteps on sand. He led her to a circle marked in the dirt. Inside stood 3 wolves, 2 betas and 1 alpha, all volunteers from his pack. They looked at her with curiosity, not fear. Rowan. Command them. Lyra. What? Rowan. You're a Silver Luna. Command is instinct, so command them. Lyra. Uncertain. I don't know how. Rowan. Yes, you do. Stop thinking. Just feel. Pause. Wind blowing. Lyra closed her eyes, reached inside herself to that burning silver place where the power lived. It responded immediately, surging up like a tidal wave. Lyra, voice resonating with power. Kneel. 3 heavy thuds as wolves hit the ground. All 3 wolves dropped instantly, but their knees slamming into stone so hard the ground cracked. They didn't choose to kneel. They couldn't resist. The command bypassed their will entirely and spoke directly to their wolves. Lyra's eyes snapped open, horrified. Lyra. I didn't mean to hurt them. Rowan, calm. You didn't. You commanded them. There's a difference. The three wolves got to their feet, shaking off the compulsion. One of them, a beta named Kira, grinned. Kira, that was incredible. Do it again. Lyra, what? No, I hurt you. Kira, you controlled us. That's the point. If you can control us in training, you can control enemies in battle. Other wolves murmuring agreement. Over the following days, Lyra learned the terrifying scope of her power. She could make wolves submit without touching them. She could force shifts. She could even sever pack bonds temporarily, leaving enemies vulnerable and isolated. The power responded to emotion. Anger made it brutal, fear made it wild, calm made it precise. Rowan pushed her relentlessly. No mercy, no softness. Rowan. Again. Lyra. Exhausted. I can't. Rowan. You can, and you will. Because the day you face a real enemy, they won't care that you're tired. Combat sounds intensifying. She learned to fight physically too. Senna taught her knife work. Fast, brutal, designed to kill, not wound. Kira taught her evasion tactics. An older Omega named Thorn taught her pressure points and how to disarm alphas twice her size. Lyra, during training, gasping. This place makes monsters. Rowan, watching from the edge. Good. The world deserves them. On the 15th day of training, Aunt Rowan finally told her the truth. They sat in his study, a sparse room with maps covering the walls and weapons displayed like art. He poured 2 glasses of dark liquor and slid one across the desk to her. Rowan, you want to know why silver lunas were hunted to extinction? Lyra, I assumed it was the power. Rowan, power is part of it, but not the reason. Pause. They were erased because they couldn't be controlled. Fire crackling in hearth. He pulled out an ancient book, its pages yellowed and fragile. The text was in Old Wolf, but he translated as he read. Rowan. The silver luna answers to no alpha, submits to no council, bows to no king. She is moon-touched, oath-bound only to justice and the protection of the Forsaken. She cannot be claimed. She cannot be tamed. Unless she's storm-made flesh. Lyra. Quiet. That's why they killed them all. Rowan. They tried, but every few generations one slips through, hidden, dormant, waiting. Lyra. And now I'm awake. Rowan. Now you're awake, and every council in the territories will want you dead. Glass clinking as she sets down her drink. Lyra. You could have left me dormant. Let me live as an Omega. Rowan. No, I couldn't, because your pack was already collapsing. The oath they broke by selling you was eating them alive. And sooner or later, you would have awakened on your own. Probably violently. Probably surrounded by enemies. Lyra. So you bought me to control the awakening. Rowan. Sharp look. I bought you to give you a choice. Wake with allies, or wake alone and die. Long pause. She tested her power again that night, and alone in the courtyard under a full moon. She called out to the wolves of Shadow Peak, not commanding them, just reaching, feeling the bonds that connected them. 30 wolves answered. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. Lyra, whispering to herself, I could make them do anything. Rowan, stepping from shadows. Yes. She jumped, hadn't heard him approach. Rowan. That's the burden, Lyra. You could command anyone, control anyone, break anyone. The question is, will you? Lyra. What if I want to? Rowan. Then you become exactly what the councils feared, a tyrant with unlimited power. Lyra, turning to face him. And if I don't? Rowan. Then you become something better, something they can't destroy. Wolves howling in distance. The bond formed without warning. Lyra woke one morning and felt it. A golden thread stretching from her chest to Rowan's, pulsing with shared emotion. Not romantic, Not gentle, invasive. Heartbeat sounds, slightly echoing. She felt his rage when he remembered his own chains, his years of captivity before he escaped and built Shadow Peak. He felt her panic when crowds closed in, when too many wolves looked at her like a weapon instead of a person. Sleep brought shared nightmares. Silver collars, blood-soaked moons, the sound of packs being slaughtered. Lyra, confronting him in his study. "What is this?" Rowan, looking up from maps. "A mate bond." Lyra, "I didn't agree to this." Rowan, "Neither did I. It just all happened." Papers rustling as she slams hands on desk. Lyra, "You can feel everything I feel?" Rowan, "Yes." Lyra, "That's a violation." Rowan, standing, voice hard. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted someone in my head, feeling every moment of rage and pain I've spent years learning to bury?" They stared at each other, both breathing hard. Lyra, quieter. "Can we cut it?" Rowan went very still. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. Rowan, "Yes, it would take time and a specialized ritual, but it can be severed." Lyra, "Would you?" Rowan, long pause. "I won't force a bond on you, Lyra. If you want it gone, we'll remove it." Lyra, "That's not what I asked. Would you want it gone?" Wind howling outside. Rowan, "No," meeting her eyes. "Because for the first time in 15 years, I don't feel alone. And that terrifies me more than any enemy ever could." She felt the truth of his words through the bond, the loneliness that had carved him hollow, the walls he'd built to survive, and underneath it all, a desperate, aching need to be seen, truly seen, by someone who understood. Lyra whispered, "I'm scared." Rowan, "So am I." Lyra, "What if we destroy each other?" Rowan, stepping closer, "Then we burn together. But I will bleed before I cage you, that's a promise." She believed him. The bond settled, no longer fighting against it. And with that acceptance came something unexpected. Strength. His strength when hers faltered. Her light when his darkness threatened to consume him. Gentle music. Emotional. Rowan, "For what it's worth, I'm glad it's you." Lyra, "Even though I'm a disaster?" Rowan, rare smile. "Especially because you're a disaster. Perfect people bore me." She laughs, surprised. Narrator, that night, they trained together for the first time, and the bond made them faster, stronger, perfectly synchronized. Where she commanded, he defended. Where he struck, she controlled. They were terrifying. They were beautiful. They were inevitable. Combat sounds fading into music. Rowan did not train her gently. He couldn't afford to. Training sounds, weapons clashing, bodies hitting mats. Every morning for 6 weeks, they met in the courtyard before dawn. He taught her how to snap wrists with leverage instead of strength, how to disarm with teeth when hands weren't enough, how to kill an alpha in under 10 seconds. Rowan, during combat, "Stop thinking like an omega." Lyra, dodging his strike, "I am an omega." Rowan, "No, you're a silver Luna who was raised as an omega. There's a difference." She lunges, he blocks. He swept her legs, dropping her hard. She rolled, came up with a knife she'd palmed. Rowan, approving. "Better, again." He didn't hold back. Every strike was real. Every lesson came with bruises. And when she complained, he simply said, "Rowan, your enemies won't care that you're new to this. They'll kill you if you hesitate. I'm making sure you don't." Training intensifies. Weeks turned into months. Lyra's body transformed, not bulky, but lethal. Every movement became efficient, economical, deadly. She learned to read opponents in seconds, identify weaknesses, exploit them ruthlessly. And then came the day she finally won. Most intense combat sequence. They'd been sparring for an hour, both exhausted and sweat-soaked. Rowan came at her with a combination she'd never seen before. Fast, brutal, designed to overwhelm. But this time, she didn't retreat. She used his momentum against him, stepped inside his guard, and swept his legs while simultaneously disarming him. He went down hard, and before he could recover, she had a blade at his throat. The entire courtyard went silent. 30 wolves stopped training to stare. Lyra was breathing hard, blade steady at Rowan's jugular. He looked up at her and slowly smiled. Rowan. Again. Lyra, breathless. What? Rowan. Again. You got lucky. Prove it wasn't a fluke? She steps back, blade lowering. Lyra, laughing despite herself. You're impossible. Rowan, standing, brushing off. I'm thorough. And there's a difference. Wolves beginning to clap and cheer. But he was proud. She felt it through the bond, a fierce, burning pride that made her chest ache. Later that night, in his study, he gave her a gift. Box opening. A set of silver knives, perfectly balanced with moonstone handles that glowed faintly in darkness. Rowan. For a queen who's earned them. Lyra. Touching them reverently. I'm not a queen. Rowan. Not yet, but you will be. On a cold night, 2 months into her training, Rowan showed her something he'd never shown anyone. His scars. Not the ones on his face and arms. Those were visible to everyone. The ones he hid beneath armor and careful positioning. Fire crackling, clothing rustling. They were alone in his private quarters, sharing a bottle of wine after a particularly brutal training day. He'd been quiet, yes, distant, and finally she asked, Lyra, where did you come from, Rowan, before Shadow Peak? Long pause. Rowan, you really want to know? Lyra, I do. Armor being removed. He stood and slowly removed his armor, then his shirt. Lyra's breath caught. His entire torso was covered in silver burns, the kind that only came from prolonged contact with silver chains. They crisscrossed his chest and back in deliberate patterns, methodical in their cruelty. Lyra, horrified. Gods, who did this to you? Rowan, the Council of Alphas, 20 years ago. Sitting down heavily. He told her everything. How he'd been born to a weak pack, deemed too aggressive, too uncontrollable. How at 15 the Council had declared him dangerous and sentenced him to correction. 5 years in silver chains, designed to break his will and make him submit. Rowan. They chained me in a cell barely big enough to stand. The silver burned constantly. Every day an alpha would come and try to force my submission. Every day I refused. Lyra. For 5 years? Rowan. For 5 years. Until one day I stopped refusing and started breaking them instead. Dark chuckle. Rowan. I killed 3 alphas when I escaped. Took their territory. Built Shadow Peak on the ruins of their packs. Pause. The Council has wanted me dead ever since. Lyra. Touching one of the scars. You let them try to break you. Rowan. I let them try. Her mark beginning to glow. Her fingers traced the silver burns, and her crescent mark responded, burning in sympathy. She felt his pain through the bond, decades of rage and defiance and determination. Lyra. Softly, I fiercely. They won't touch you again. Rowan. Promise? Lyra, meeting his eyes. No threat. He laughed, a real laugh, deep and genuine. Rowan. There's the queen I've been waiting for. Emotional pause. They stayed like that for hours, her fingers tracing his scars while he told her stories of Shadow Peak's founding. Of the first wolves who came to him. Broken, rejected, left to die. of how he'd taught them to be dangerous instead of dead. Rowan. Every wolf here has been told they're worthless. I prove them wrong. Lyra. Is that what you're doing with me? Rowan, pulling her closer. No? With you, I'm just giving you the weapons to prove it yourself. Gentle, intimate moment. That night, she fell asleep against his chest, his arms wrapped carefully around her. And for the first time in months, neither of them had nightmares. Soft music fading. The council came calling 3 months after Lyra's awakening. Heavy footsteps, armor clanking, wolves growling. Gideon Ironclaw, High Alpha of the Northern Territories, arrived at Shadow Peak's gates with 50 warriors at his back. He was ancient, at least 70, but still powerful, his presence like a thunderstorm contained in flesh. Gideon, booming voice. Rowan Blackthorn, present yourself. Gates remaining closed. Rowan appeared on the wall, Lyra beside him. Senna and 24 Shadow Peak wolves flanked them, weapons ready. Rowan. State your business, Gideon. Gideon. You know damn well what my business is. You're harboring a silver luna, illegal by council law. Rowan. Your laws don't apply here. Gideon. My laws apply everywhere. I'll hand her over. Tension building. Lyra, stepping forward. I can speak for myself. Gideon's eyes narrowed, studying her. The crescent mark on her shoulder glowed faintly through her shirt. Gideon. So it's true. You're fully awakened. Lyra. Yes. Gideon. Then you're a threat to the natural order. You will submit to council authority and accept containment. Lyra. No. Dead silence. Gideon. Dangerously quiet. That wasn't a request, Omega. Lyra. Power beginning to surge. I am not Omega. I am not property, and I am done being told what I am. The crescent mark ignited, bright enough to make Gideon's wolves step back. Gideon. You will submit, or we will. Lyra. Voice resonating with command. Kneel. Massive surge of power, wolves crying out. The power hit like a physical blow. All 50 of Gideon's warriors dropped instantly, their knees cracking against stone. Even Gideon himself wavered, fighting the command with every ounce of his considerable will. But his wolf was screaming submission, and after 30 seconds of struggle, he too went down. Hard. Gasps and groans of submission. Lyra walked down from the wall, through the gates, until she stood directly in front of the kneeling High Alpha. Her eyes were molten silver, her power crackling in the air like lightning. Lyra. I was sold like cattle, chained like an animal, told I was nothing my entire life. Pause. Never again. Gideon, straining to speak. You can't command a High Alpha. Lyra. I just did, leaning close. And I can do worse. I can sever your bond to your pack. I can force your shift and leave you trapped. I can make your wolf forget you. Is that what you want? Gideon. You wouldn't dare. Lyra. Try me. Wind howling, power crackling. For 10 long seconds, they stared at each other. Omega and High Alpha. Except she wasn't Omega anymore. She was something the councils had tried to erase for a reason. Finally, Gideon lowered his eyes. Submission. Gideon. Horse. What do you want? Lyra. I want your packs to leave the rejected alone. I want an end to auctions. I want Omegas to have the same rights as Alphas. Pause. And I want you to take a message back to the council. Gideon. What message? Lyra. Tell them the silver lunas aren't extinct. Tell them we're coming for the thrones they built on our graves. And tell them, her mark blazing, I'm just the beginning. She released the command. 50 wolves gasped as control returned to them. They scrambled to their feet, terrified and awed. Lyra. Leave. Now. footsteps retreating quickly. They left. Even Gideon, ancient and proud, retreated without another word. Lyra stood at Shadow Peak's gates until they were gone, then finally turned back. Rowan was waiting, his expression unreadable. Rowan, you just declared war on every council in the territories. Lyra, I know. Rowan, they'll come with armies next time. Lyra, walking past him. Good. I'm tired of waiting. Gates closing with finality. Word spread fast. Within 2 weeks, every rejected wolf in the Northern Territories had heard the story. A silver Luna who made a high alpha kneel. A queen who rose from chains. They came in waves. Footsteps, multiple voices, sounds of arrival. Omegas who'd been cast out. A betas deemed too weak. Alphas who'd refused to bow to corrupt leaders. They all came to Shadow Peak, seeking refuge, seeking purpose, seeking vengeance. Within a month, Rowan's pack had doubled in size. Within 2 months, it had tripled. Senna, reporting to Rowan and Lyra. We've got 200 now, maybe more arriving daily. We're running out of space. Rowan. Then we expand, take the Eastern Ridge. Lyra. We also need more trainers, more resources. Senna. I know people. Exiles who'd join us if they knew we were serious about this. Rowan. Looking at Lyra. Are we? Lyra. Are we what? Rowan. Serious about this. About building an army. About going to war with the councils. Long pause. Lyra. They've had control for 300 years. They built their power on the graves of people like us. Like me. Pause. Yes. Like I'm serious. So they built an army. Not just warriors. But healers, strategists, scouts. They took abandoned territories and claimed them. They freed Omegas from abusive packs. They disrupted auctions and killed slavers. Shadow Peak became more than a pack. It became a movement. Montage of activity, training, building, recruiting. And at the center of it all was Lyra. The girl who'd been sold for gold now commanded hundreds with just her presence. She didn't need to use her power. They followed her because she gave them something the councils never had. Hope. Lyra, addressing the gathered pack one evening. I know what it's like to be told you're worthless, to be treated as property, as lesser, as nothing. Pause. But we are not nothing. We are the ones they fear, the ones they tried to erase, and we are going to take back what they stole. Cheers and howls from the crowd. Lyra, I'm not asking you to die for me. I'm asking you to live for yourselves, to become what they said you couldn't be, to prove them wrong with every breath. Louder cheers. Lyra, they call us rejected, broken, unwanted. Her mark glowing. Let's show them what the unwanted can do. Deafening roar of approval. That night, under a full moon, Lyra stood on the highest tower of Shadow Peak and looked out over her army. 200 wolves, all training, all preparing, all believing in something bigger than themselves. Rowan joined her, his presence warm and solid at her back. Rowan. No going back now. Lyra. I don't want to go back. Rowan. This path ends in war. You know that, right? Real war. Our people will die. Lyra, turning to face him. I know, but if we don't fight, nothing changes. And I refuse to let another Omega be sold, another wolf be broken, another silver Luna be erased. Rowan, taking her hand. Then we fight. Lyra. Together? Rowan. Always. They kiss, fierce and desperate and full of promise. Narrator. Across the territories, in the halls of power, the councils felt the shift. A storm was coming, led by a girl they tried to erase. A queen made of night and fury and unbreakable will. And they were terrified, as they should be. 6 months after Gideon Ironclaw's humiliation, the Council of Alphas convened in the Black Citadel. Ominous music, Heavy doors closing, echoing footsteps. 12 high alphas from 12 territories gathered in the ancient hall where countless judgments had been passed, and where laws had been written, where silver lunas had once been sentenced to extinction. At the head of the table sat Magnus Shadowfang, oldest of them all, his eyes cold as winter death. Magnus, gravelly voice. Rowan Blackthorn and his pet Luna have become a problem. Gideon. A problem? She's a declaration of war. High Alpha Helena. Female calculating. How many wolves does she command now? Gideon. 500, maybe more, and they're fanatics. They'd die for her without hesitation. Magnus. Then we make an example. We crush Shadow Peak. We kill Blackthorn. And we put the Luna in chains where she belongs. High Alpha Theron. Younger, aggressive. I volunteer to lead the assault. Give me 1,000 warriors. Magnus. No, we all go. 12 territories, 12,000 warriors. Pause. We end this. Knee once and for all. Heavy silence. The decision was made. In 3 months, when winter came and travel was difficult, they would march on Shadow Peak with an army unlike anything seen in 3 centuries. They would erase Rowan Blackthorn's rebellion. They would prove that silver lunas could still be broken. They would restore order. They believed they would win. They were wrong. Scene transition. Lyra heard about the council's plans within 2 weeks. She had spies everywhere now, rejected wolves embedded in enemy packs, feeding her information. When she told Rowan, he didn't seem surprised. War room, maps spread across table. Rowan, 12,000 warriors. They're not playing anymore. Lyra, neither are we. Senna, we've got 500 trained fighters, maybe 600 if we count the recent arrivals. Ash, we're outnumbered 20 to 1. Lyra, numbers aren't everything. Rowan, against trained alphas, numbers matter a lot. Lyra, looking at the maps, then we don't fight them straight on. We break them before they reach us. Pause. Rowan, what are you thinking? Lyra, I'm thinking that 12 territories marching together means 12 supply lines, 12 points of failure, 12 places where I can reach inside and make them stop. Understanding dawned on Rowan's face. Rowan, you want to use your power long range. Lyra, I've been practicing. I can touch pack bonds from miles away now. Not control them, but I can disrupt them. Make alphas doubt their leaders. And make warriors question their commands. Senna, low whistle. You want to break 12,000 wolves before they even arrive. Lyra, I want to give them a choice. Follow the councils into a war they can't win, or join us and build something better. Rowan, leaning back. That's ambitious, possibly insane. Lyra, smiling darkly. I learned from the best. He smiles back. They spent the next 3 months preparing. Not just for battle, but for something bigger. Lyra traveled in secret to neutral territories, meeting with Omegas, with rejected alphas, with anyone the councils had wronged. Her message was simple. You don't have to be property anymore. And they listened. By the time winter came, Lyra had a network of 5,000 wolves across the territories. Not warriors, but believers, ready to rise when she called. Right, the councils didn't know. They thought they were marching on a single fortress. They didn't realize they were marching toward a revolution. Epic music building. On the first day of the blood moon, when wolf power was at its peak, the council's armies began their march. 12,000 warriors moving as one. Alphas in gleaming armor, betas carrying banners, omegas forced to serve as support. They expected to reach Shadow Peak in 2 weeks and crush it in 1 day. They made it 3 days. Marching sounds, then sudden silence. On the 3rd night, Lyra stood alone on the highest peak of Shadow Peak, her mark blazing like a second moon. She reached out with her power, not a command, but an invitation. A question asked to 5,000 wolves across 12 territories. Will you kneel to kings who see you as property? Or will you rise? Power surging across distances. The response was immediate. In the Northern Army, Omegas dropped their supply packs and walked away. In the Eastern Army, 300 Betas refused orders and turned toward Shadow Peak instead. In the Western Army, an entire battalion of rejected Alphas killed their commanders and raised a new banner, one marked with a silver crescent. Commander in Northern Army, panicking. What's happening? Why are they leaving? Omega deserter, before disappearing into forest. Because someone finally gave us a choice. Chaos spreading through multiple camps. Within 3 days, the Council's armies had lost a third of their forces, not to battle, but to defection. Magnus Shadowfang stared at the reports in disbelief. Magnus. How? How is she doing this? Gideon. She's a silver Luna, Magnus. This is what they were created to do. Break bonds, free wolves, choose their own packs. Magnus. Then we kill her first, before she tears apart everything we've built. But when they finally reached Shadow Peak after 2 weeks of desertion and chaos, they found something unexpected. 10,000 wolves waiting for them. Massive army gathering. Banners in the wind. Lyra had called, and the rejected had answered. Every Omega she'd freed. Every Beta who'd been cast out. Every Alpha who'd refused to bow to corruption. They'd all come, and they were done asking permission. Lyra, standing at the front of her army, power blazing. You came here to kill me, to put me in chains, to prove that Silver Lunas can still be broken. Her voice carried across the battlefield, amplified by power. Lyra, but I'm not here to be broken. I'm here to break you. The Council's armies hesitated. Even Magnus looked uncertain. Rowan, beside her, voice carrying. Last chance. Lay down your weapons and walk away, or stay and fight a war you can't win. Tense silence. Then, soldier from Council Army, throwing down weapon. I'm done fighting for them. Another soldier. Me too. Weapons clattering. Mass desertion beginning. 3,000 more warriors threw down their weapons and left. Some joined Lyra's side. Others simply walked away, finally free. Magnus Shadowfang's army was collapsing. Not from battle, but from choice. Magnus, roaring. Hold the line. I command you to... Lyra, power surging. You command nothing. Her mark erupted, brighter than ever before. And every wolf on the battlefield felt it. The invitation, the choice, the freedom. To Lyra. I am Lyra Ashwood, Silver Luna, Queen of the Rejected, and I offer you one chance. Join us and build something better, or stand with the councils and fall with them. Massive power wave. 6,000 more wolves laid down their weapons. The council's army was gone, destroyed not by violence, but by hope. Magnus Shadowfang stood alone with his high alphas, 12 old wolves facing 10,000 young ones. Lyra, walking forward. It's over, Magnus. Magnus, never. The councils have ruled for centuries. Lyra, and now they end, because we're done being property, done being broken, done being told we're lesser. She raised her hand, and the crescent blazed. Lyra, kneel or leave. Those are your options. Long, heavy silence. One by one, the high alphas knelt. Even Gideon, even Helena, even proud Magnus Shadowfang. Hadi who'd ruled the North for 50 years. They knelt before an Omega, before a queen, before the future. Lyra. The councils are dissolved. The auctions are ended. Every Omega, Beta, and Alpha has equal rights. And anyone who disagrees, her eyes glowing silver, can take it up with me. Massive cheer from her army. The war was over before it began. The councils fell not to violence, but to revolution, and the world of wolves would never be the same. 3 months later, under a peaceful full moon, Lyra and Rowan stood on the rebuilt walls of what was no longer called Shadow Peak. It was called Haven now, the place where broken wolves came home. Peaceful night sounds, wolves talking and laughing in distance. Rowan. Any regrets? Lyra. About starting a revolution? Overthrowing 12 governments? Completely changing wolf society? Rowan. Yes. Lyra's eyes was smiling. Not even one. Rowan. Good. Because we've got 3 territories asking to join us, 5 more asking for help rebuilding, and at least 10 alphas who want you dead. Lyra. Only 10? I'm losing my touch. He laughs. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their pack, their family, live freely below. Rowan. You know what you've become, right? Lyra. What? Rowan. A legend. In 50 years, they'll tell stories about you. The Omega who became a queen. The Silver Luna who broke the world and rebuilt it better. Lyra, leaning against him. I don't want to be a legend. I just wanted to stop being property. Rowan. You became something better. You became free. Emotional pause. Lyra. So did you. Rowan. Pulling her close. Yeah, thanks to you. Lyra. We saved each other. Rowan. Is that what we did? Lyra. Looking up at him. That's what we'll keep doing, for as long as it takes. They kissed under the blood-bright moon. 2 broken wolves who'd become something better together. A king who'd learned to trust. A queen who'd learned to lead. And in the distance, a wolf howled. Not in pain, not in submission, but in joy. Voice fading. The moon does not forgive those who chain the innocent, but it remembers those who break free. And Lyra Ashwood would be remembered forever. Epic music swells to finale, then fades. Final whisper. The end, but also the beginning. Music fades to silence. Soft, ethereal music. Thank you for listening to She Was Sold to Pay Her Pack's Debt. This has been a Lunar Tales production. It's written and performed for your journey through darkness and into light. May you find your own strength. May you break your own chains. May you become everything they said you couldn't be. Until next time, the moon is watching. Music fades completely.